Babylon. You know, for thousands of years, that name, it wasn't really a place. It was more like a whisper, a legendary city of sin and splendor, straight from the pages of the Bible. It was a ghost, lost somewhere out on the Mesopotamian plains, swallowed by the shifting sands of time. But what if? What if the legend was real? For centuries, this is all anyone ever saw. A huge, desolate landscape of earthen mounds just baking under the Iraqi sun. It was this confusing jumble of hills and dips. One archaeologist even called it the ghost of a city, a place where no human habitation is in sight. Just nothing. And looking at this, well, it brings up the ultimate question, doesn't it? The one that haunted historians and adventurers for generations. Could this barren wasteland really be hiding the foundations of Babylon the Great? Could the infamous city of King Nebuchadnezzar, the city of the Tower of Babel, could it actually be pulled from the dust? Well, the answer finally came at the turn of the 20th century. A German archaeologist named Robert Koldewey showed up here with this singular, absolutely monumental mission to dig for the truth. And the challenge he was facing, it's almost impossible to comprehend. This wasn't just going to be an excavation. It was going to be the resurrection of a lost world. Just to give you an idea of the scale, the main mound, a hill the locals called Babeli, it rose 22 meters above the plain. That's over 70 feet high. Now, this wasn't some natural hill. Oh no. This was a man-made mountain of collapsed palaces and temples, all of it forgotten history, just crushed and compressed by thousands of years. And how do you move a mountain like that? Well, it took an army. On any given day, you'd have a workforce of up to 250 men, all armed with pickaxes and baskets, descending into these massive trenches. They carried away the earth, basket by basket, in this relentless, incredibly organized effort to just peel back the layers of time. But you have to wonder, what gave Koldewey the confidence to even start a project this massive? It was this. Years earlier, on a scouting visit, he had found these little fragments of enameled bricks just scattered on the ground. Their brilliant colors were this tiny, tantalizing clue, a flash of impossible beauty in all that dust that convinced him something truly magnificent was buried right under his feet. And you know what? His gut feeling paid off. Big time. After months and months of relentless digging, his team had their first major breakthrough. And they didn't just find a wall or the foundation of a building. No, they found a road, the sacred processional way that led to the very heart of Babylon. The sheer grandeur of it must have been breathtaking. This avenue, it was paved with enormous blocks of white limestone and this beautiful red breccia. And get this, carved on the edge of each stone, hidden from view, was the stamp of this creator. It said, "Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, I paved the Babel street for the procession of the great Lord Marduk." This wasn't a road for people. This was a road built for a god. But the road itself was only half the story. It was what lined the street that was truly astounding. In Koldewey's own words, the high walls on either side weren't just bare brick. They held, quote, the impressive decoration of long rows of lions advancing, one behind the other, in low relief and with brilliant enamels. And this is what he found. A guardian made of glazed brick, frozen in mid-stride for 2,500 years. This lion, the sacred animal of the goddess Ishtar, was just one of an estimated 120 that lined the path. Can you imagine it? A fearsome, beautiful honor guard for the gods and kings. So the processional way was an absolute marvel, but it was leading somewhere. Koldewey's team followed the path of the lions, and what they uncovered next was the climax of their entire quest. It was a structure so immense and so vibrant, it would completely redefine how the world saw ancient Babylon. And here it is. This is the first glimpse of the Ishtar Gate as it rose from the excavation pit. I mean, even in this ruined state, you can just feel the colossal scale of the thing. This wasn't just a gate. It was a fortress, a massive double gateway with walls that still stood 12 meters high, forming this monumental entrance into the inner city. And thanks to inscriptions they found right there at the site, we can actually hear from the architect himself. King Nebuchadnezzar II proclaimed that he adorned his gate with beasts of bronze and dragons, and that he built it to be, quote, glorious for the amazement of all peoples. And you know what? He wasn't exaggerating. So, who were these amazing guardians? Well, on the left, we have the powerful bull, sacred to the weather god Adad. And on the right, one of the most mysterious and, frankly, coolest creatures in mythology, the Sarush, or dragon. This was the personal emblem of Marduk, the chief god of Babylon. So these weren't just decorations. They were raw symbols of divine power. And here is the final, breathtaking reality of what they found. The gate wasn't some drab mud color. It was a sea of brilliant blue. The glazed bricks were colored to imitate lapis lazuli, which was an incredibly rare and precious stone in the ancient world. The entire structure was literally designed to shimmer in the sun like a giant jewel.
The sheer number of these creatures is what truly must have conveyed the gate's magnificence. I mean, Koldewey's team meticulously counted all the fragments of the reliefs, and they figured out there were at least 13 rows of these animals. His conservative estimate, a minimum of 575 bulls and dragons once covered the surfaces of the Ishtar Gate. Just try to picture that.
So, with the Ishtar Gate and the processional way revealed, Koldewey had basically resurrected the heart of Nebuchadnezzar's capital. But there was one final, towering legend that remained. Could he find actual physical proof of the Bible's most famous story, the Tower of Babel? Ancient texts, you see, they spoke of a great ziggurat, a stepped temple tower right at the center of the city, dedicated to the god Marduk. Its name in Sumerian was Etemenanki, which translates literally to the temple of the foundation of heaven and earth. This was the prime suspect for the historical Tower of Babel. I mean, that's a pretty spectacular name for a building known mostly through scripture and myth, right? But after uncovering everything else he had, Koldewey had to ask, was there any hard evidence on the ground? Was the legend of a tower that reached for the heavens actually rooted in architectural reality? The answer was right there, in his own excavation plan. If you look closely at the center of the site, there it is, labeled ET for Etemenanki. Now, Koldewey didn't find the tower itself. It had been dismantled way back in antiquity, but he found its footprint, a massive square foundation, the literal groundwork of the myth itself. So after years and years of painstaking work, the picture was finally complete. The scale, the impact of what Koldewey discovered, it was profound. It was nothing less than the resurrection of a lost civilization, pulled right from the pages of legend. And that's the ultimate impact of his excavation. It was the transformation of myth into history. The city that the Bible had branded as this symbol of decadence and sin was proven to be a real place. And not just any place, but a glorious, powerful metropolis of breathtaking beauty and unparalleled architectural achievement. And that changes how we see this landscape forever. It's no longer just a sketch of anonymous mounds out in the desert. Thanks to Koldewey's work, it's the ground plan of a real city. We can now walk its streets, we can stand before its gates, and we can name its temples. The stories of Babylon could finally be told by its own stones. Which, of course, leaves us with one final tantalizing thought. Babylon was a myth that turned out to be real, its wonders buried just beneath our feet the whole time. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many other myths are out there just waiting for a shovel and a patient hand to bring them back into the light?